Avoidants always remember the one who loved them most. Have you ever wondered why the person who walked away often thinks about you years later? Why someone who couldn't stay can't completely forget? Why the silence they chose slowly becomes the loudest voice in their mind? Here's the truth that almost nobody talks about. Avoidant people don't always forget the deepest love they receive. Sometimes they spend years trying to outrun it. Not because it meant nothing, but because it meant too much. The greatest irony is this: the one they pushed away, the one they couldn't fully accept, the one they convinced themselves they didn't need, often becomes the one they compare everyone else to, because real love leaves fingerprints on the soul, and no amount of distance can erase what was genuine. Today, you're going to discover why avoidants always remember the one who loved them most, why chasing only pushes them further away, and why becoming your strongest self is the greatest message you'll ever send. So if you've ever loved deeply, been left confused, and wondered if you ever mattered, this message is for you. Most people believe that if someone leaves, they've already forgotten you. That's one of the biggest lies you can tell yourself. People don't always leave because they stopped caring. Sometimes they leave because they don't know how to carry the weight of being truly loved. Real intimacy exposes every insecurity. It reveals every fear. It demands vulnerability. For someone with avoidant tendencies, that can feel overwhelming. Instead of leaning into love, they create distance. Not because you're too much, because closeness feels unfamiliar. Many people confuse emotional distance with emotional absence. They're not the same thing. Someone can spend years emotionally disconnected while secretly replaying memories they never talk about. The laugh you shared, the conversations late at night, the way you believed in them when they didn't believe in themselves. Those moments don't disappear. Time doesn't erase meaningful experiences. It simply changes how people understand them. Life has an incredible way of teaching lessons that emotions couldn't. One day they meet people who don't care, people who don't stay, people who don't fight, people who only love when it's convenient. That's when comparison begins. Not because they're trying to replace you, because your love quietly became the standard, and standards don't disappear. Here's what you must understand. Your value was never determined by someone's ability to receive it. The sun doesn't stop shining because someone closes the curtains. Your love wasn't wasted. Your kindness wasn't weakness. Your loyalty wasn't foolish. You gave from the highest part of yourself. Never regret becoming someone's lesson, because lessons shape lives. But here's the mistake so many people make. They wait. They pause their dreams. They stop living. They believe healing means waiting for someone else's realization. No. Healing begins the moment your happiness no longer depends on someone else's decision. The greatest revenge isn't making someone regret losing you. The greatest victory is becoming someone who no longer needs their validation. Build your confidence. Protect your peace. Create a life so meaningful that whether someone returns or not becomes irrelevant, because your purpose is bigger than your heartbreak. Ironically, that's often when people notice your absence. Not because you disappeared, because your energy changed. You stopped chasing. You stopped begging. You stopped proving your worth. Confidence is magnetic. Self-respect is unforgettable. Growth speaks louder than words ever could. If they remember you one day, let them remember someone who transformed pain into power. Someone who refused to become bitter. Someone who chose discipline over despair. Someone who kept becoming better. Because people rarely remember perfection. They remember impact. And the people who loved with courage leave the deepest impact of all. If someone couldn't receive your love, don't shrink your heart. Expand your life. Become stronger. Become wiser. Become impossible to ignore. Not because you're seeking attention, but because excellence naturally attracts it. Never let one person's fear convince you that you're difficult to love. You are not hard to love. You are simply too valuable for someone who wasn't ready. And remember this: the chapter may end, the memories may fade around the edges, but authentic love leaves echoes. Those echoes have a way of returning when life becomes quiet enough to hear them. So don't spend your future wondering whether they remember you. Spend your future becoming someone you'll always be proud of remembering yourself. People often believe that love disappears the moment a relationship ends, but that's rarely how the human heart works. The deepest connections don't simply vanish because two people stop talking or choose different paths. Real love has a way of embedding itself into memory, becoming part of a person's emotional foundation. It influences how they see future relationships, how they measure trust, and how they remember moments of genuine happiness. Someone may walk away physically, but that doesn't mean the emotional impact disappears. Experiences that touch the soul leave marks that time cannot completely erase. When someone receives unconditional support, patience during difficult seasons, and genuine acceptance, those experiences become reference points. They may not recognize their value immediately. In fact, people who struggle with emotional closeness often realize what they had only after they no longer have access to it. During the relationship, fear may have been louder than appreciation. Their instinct may have been to create distance whenever emotions became too intense. But once life becomes quieter and distractions fade, memories begin to speak. They remember the conversations that made them feel understood. They remember the encouragement they received when they doubted themselves. They remember the safety they felt in moments they once took for granted. Love that is real doesn't rely on constant reminders to stay alive in memory. It survives because it changed something inside a person. It helped them grow, challenged them, and revealed possibilities they had never experienced before. Even if they never admit it out loud, those experiences become part of the story they tell themselves about what genuine connection looks like. Every future relationship is, consciously or unconsciously, compared against those moments, not because they are trying to recreate the past, but because the heart naturally remembers what felt authentic. This is why you should never believe that your sincere efforts were meaningless simply because someone couldn't stay. Your kindness, loyalty, and belief in another person were not wasted. They became part of someone's emotional history. Whether they acknowledge it next week or 10 years from now is beyond your control. What matters is that you loved from a place of honesty instead of fear. There is tremendous strength in that. Many people go through life without ever experiencing a love that asks for nothing but truth and commitment. When they finally encounter it, they may not know how to hold it. Sometimes they mistake peace for boredom, consistency for predictability, and vulnerability for danger. Only after experiencing relationships built on uncertainty, inconsistency, or emotional distance do they begin to understand the rare gift they once had. Think about the people who have influenced your own life the most. Chances are, you don't remember them because they were perfect. You remember them because they made you feel seen, heard, and valued. They believed in you when you questioned yourself. They stood beside you during moments when others disappeared. Those memories stay alive because emotions strengthen memory far more than ordinary experiences ever can. The same principle applies to the love you gave. If it was authentic, patient, and genuine, it created moments that cannot simply be erased by silence or separation. The mistake many people make is believing they have to be unforgettable by becoming louder, more dramatic, or impossible to replace. But lasting memories are rarely created through chaos. They are created through consistency, compassion, and presence. A calm voice during someone's storm, an encouraging word when they wanted to quit, unwavering loyalty when life became difficult. These are the moments that echo through time. They don't demand attention in the moment, but they gain significance with distance. As people mature and gain perspective, they begin to recognize the difference between temporary excitement and lasting emotional security. That is why genuine love carries a quiet power. It doesn't chase recognition, and it doesn't beg to be remembered. It simply leaves evidence of its existence in the way someone thinks, feels, and grows long after the relationship has ended. Real love is never easily forgotten because it becomes part of who a person is. even if they spend years trying to convince themselves otherwise. When someone creates distance, it's easy to assume that you meant nothing to them. Your mind starts searching for answers, and the silence feels like proof that the connection was never real. But emotional distance and emotional indifference are not the same thing. A person can care deeply and still struggle to stay close. For some, intimacy feels less like comfort and more like vulnerability. The closer someone gets to them, the more exposed they feel. Instead of moving toward the relationship, they instinctively move away, believing distance will protect them from emotions they don't know how to manage. This doesn't excuse hurtful behavior, nor does it mean you should accept inconsistency or neglect. It simply explains that people's actions are often driven by their internal battles rather than by your value. Many individuals carry fears they have never confronted. They fear depending on someone. They fear losing their independence. They fear rejection so intensely that they leave before anyone else has the chance to leave them. To an outside observer, it can look like they don't care. In reality, they may care more than they're prepared to handle. When emotions become intense, they may convince themselves that pulling away is the safest option. They distract themselves with work, new routines, or new relationships, hoping the discomfort will disappear. Yet unresolved emotions rarely disappear. They wait patiently beneath the surface, often returning when life slows down and there's no longer anything to hide behind. That's when reflection begins. They start recognizing the stability, patience, and understanding they once had, even if they couldn't appreciate it at the time. This is why you must never confuse someone's inability to remain emotionally available with a lack of your worth. Their distance is a reflection of their emotional capacity, not a measurement of your value. You are not too loving, too caring, or too much. You simply offered something they were not emotionally prepared to receive. Your responsibility was to love with honesty and integrity, not to rescue someone from fears only they can overcome. The strongest thing you can do is recognize that another person's emotional limitations should never become the standard by which you judge yourself. Your value remains intact, regardless of who had the courage or the fear to recognize it. One of the greatest mistakes people make after being left by someone they deeply loved is allowing another person's decision to define their self-worth. They begin asking painful questions that slowly chip away at their confidence. Was I not enough? If I had been more attractive, more patient, less emotional, or more successful, would they have stayed? These questions feel natural in moments of heartbreak, but they are built on a false assumption that your value is determined by someone else's ability to recognize it. The truth is, another person's emotional capacity has never been the measuring stick for your worth. Imagine handing a priceless diamond to someone who has never learned its value. They might overlook it, ignore it, or even trade it for something far less meaningful. That doesn't reduce the value of the diamond. It only reveals the limitations of the person holding it. The same principle applies to love. When you offer loyalty, honesty, kindness, and commitment to someone who isn't emotionally ready to receive those gifts, their inability to appreciate them says far more about their emotional readiness than it does about your character. Too many people spend years trying to become more lovable after a relationship ends. They change themselves to fit someone else's expectations. They silence parts of their personality, hide their emotions, or pretend they need less than they truly do. But love that requires you to abandon who you are isn't love that will ever bring lasting peace. The strongest relationships are built when two people can be fully themselves without feeling the need to earn basic respect or affection. You should never have to shrink your heart just to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Your value existed long before that person entered your life, and it will continue long after they leave. It isn't created by compliments, attention, or validation from another human being. It comes from your character, your integrity, your resilience, and the way you choose to treat others even when life becomes difficult. A relationship can add joy to your life, but it should never become the foundation of your identity. When your identity depends entirely on another person's presence, their absence can make you question everything. But when your identity is rooted in who you are, you can experience heartbreak without losing yourself. It's important to understand that emotionally unavailable people often struggle to receive healthy love, not because healthy love lacks value, but because it asks them to face parts of themselves they've avoided for years. Consistency can feel unfamiliar. Vulnerability can feel unsafe. Genuine affection can seem overwhelming. Instead of embracing those feelings, they may retreat from them. If they walk away from someone who truly cared, it doesn't mean that care was insufficient. It often means they were unprepared for the responsibility that comes with a deep emotional connection. Never reduce your worth to someone's inability to stay. A flower doesn't stop being beautiful because one person walks past without noticing it. The sunrise doesn't become less magnificent because someone slept through it. Greatness doesn't depend on applause. And genuine love doesn't become less valuable simply because it wasn't fully received. There will always be people who cannot recognize what stands right in front of them. That should never convince you that you have less to offer. Instead of asking why someone couldn't love you the way you deserved, begin asking a better question. How can I become even stronger, wiser, and more confident because of this experience? That shift changes everything. It moves your focus away from seeking validation and toward building a life rooted in self-respect. Confidence grows when you realize you don't now everyone to choose you in order to believe in yourself. The right people will never require you to prove your value over and over again. They will recognize your heart, appreciate your effort, and meet your commitment with their own. Until then, never let another person's limitations become the story you tell yourself about who you are. One of the most powerful shifts you can make after heartbreak is choosing growth over pursuit. When someone pulls away, your first instinct may be to chase them, explain yourself, send one more message, or prove that the relationship is worth saving. It feels like if you could just find the right words, everything would return to the way it was. But real transformation never begins by convincing someone else to stay. It begins when you decide that your peace is no longer dependent on their response. Chasing often comes from fear. The fear of losing someone, the fear of being forgotten, or the fear that you will never experience love again. But fear rarely produces healthy decisions. The more you chase, the more you communicate that your happiness depends on another person's approval. You slowly give away your confidence, your time, and your emotional energy, hoping someone else will fill the emptiness inside you. The problem is that no relationship can permanently fill a space that only self-respect and purpose were meant to occupy. Growth asks something completely different of you. It asks you to invest in yourself with the same dedication you once invested in the zone. Instead of waiting for a text message, build new habits. Instead of replaying old conversations, learn new skills. Instead of wondering what they're doing, focus on who you're becoming. Every workout completed, every book finished, every goal achieved, and every challenge overcome becomes proof that your life is still moving forward. Progress restores confidence because it reminds you that your future is still yours to create. There is something incredibly attractive about a person who chooses purpose over calm. Confidence cannot be faked, and self-respect cannot be borrowed. They are earned through the daily decision to keep growing, even when no one is watching. Ironically, when you stop trying to convince someone of your worth, you begin living in a way that naturally reflects it. Your energy changes, your conversations become more positive, your posture becomes stronger, your decisions become wiser, because they are no longer driven by fear, but by intention. The goal is not to grow so someone regrets losing you. The goal is to grow because you deserve a life that is bigger than your heartbreak. When your focus shifts from chasing a person to building your character, your identity becomes rooted in strength instead of uncertainty. And that is the kind of growth no rejection can ever take away. Far too many people put their lives on hold while waiting for someone else to have a change of heart. They convince themselves that happiness will return only if that one person comes back, apologizes, or finally realizes what they lost. Days become weeks, weeks become months, and before they know it, they have sacrificed precious time waiting for a moment that may never arrive. But your life was never meant to be lived in a waiting room. It was meant to be lived with purpose, courage, and forward momentum. The strongest people are not those who never experience heartbreak. They are the ones who refuse to let heartbreak become the final chapter of their story. They understand that every painful experience carries a lesson, and every lesson creates an opportunity for growth. Instead of allowing disappointment to define them, they allow it to refine them. They become more disciplined, more emotionally intelligent, more confident, and more intentional about the life they choose to build. Their focus shifts from trying to change another person to becoming the best version of person. There is an incredible freedom that comes when you stop asking, "Will they come back?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming because of this experience?" That question changes everything. It redirects your energy towards something you can actually control. You cannot control another person's choices, emotions, or readiness for commitment, but you can control your mindset, your habits, your goals, and the standards you set for your own life. Every day becomes an opportunity to become stronger instead of more discouraged. Becoming someone who inspires others is not about seeking revenge or proving anyone wrong. It is about living in such a way that your actions speak louder than your disappointment. You become the person who keeps promises to yourself, the person who continues learning when others give up, the person who protects their peace instead of chasing temporary validation, the person who walks into every room with quiet confidence because they know their worth is no longer tied to anyone else's opinion. People naturally remember those who leave a lasting impact. And lasting impact is never created by desperation. It is created by character. It is created by integrity, consistency, kindness, and resilience. Think about the people you admire most. They are not remembered because they spent their lives waiting for acceptance. They are remembered because they continued moving forward despite rejection, setbacks, and uncertainty. Their strength came from their ability to remain true to themselves, even when life became difficult. If someone who once walked away eventually looks back, let them see someone who refused to become bitter. Let them see someone who transformed pain into purpose and rejection into determination. Let them see someone who invested in their health, their mindset, their career, their relationships, and their future instead of spending years trapped in regret. Whether they return or not should never be the measure of your success. Your success is found in the person you become through the process. Every challenge has the power to either break your confidence or build your character. The decision belongs to you. Each morning you wake up with a choice. You can relive the past, or you can create a future that excites you. You can continue searching for answers in someone else's silence, or you can begin writing a story that no longer depends on their presence. The people who create extraordinary lives are not always the ones who had the easiest journeys. They are the ones who refuse to stop growing, refuse to stop believing, and refuse to let one chapter determine the ending of the entire book. That is the mindset of someone who no longer waits to be chosen because they have already chosen to become the greatest version of themselves. As we come to the end of this message, remember one truth that has the power to change your life forever. You cannot force someone to recognize your value. You cannot make someone emotionally ready. You cannot love another person enough to heal the wounds they refuse to face. But you can choose how this story changes you. You can choose strength over suffering, growth over regret, purpose over pain. Never measure your life by who walked away. Measure it by who you became because they did. If someone with avoidant tendencies remembers you one day, let it be because your love was genuine, your character was unshakable, and your kindness never depended on being appreciated. But don't spend your future hoping they remember. Spend your future becoming someone who never forgets their own worth. The greatest victory isn't hearing, "I made a mistake." The greatest victory is reaching a place where those words no longer determine your happiness. Because confidence doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself every single day. When you wake up with purpose, when you protect your peace, when you refuse to chase people who don't choose you, when you continue growing while others remain stuck, you become unstoppable. Life has a remarkable way of rewarding people who refuse to quit on themselves. The right people will recognize your value without making you beg for it. The right relationships will bring peace instead of confusion. The right love will never require you to abandon your dignity to keep it alive. So stop looking back at the closed door. There are opportunities waiting for the person you're becoming. There is peace waiting for the heart that finally lets go. There is greatness waiting for the individual who refuses to settle for less than they deserve. Walk forward with your head held high. Carry your lessons, not your bitterness. Carry your wisdom, not your fear. Carry your confidence, not your doubts. Because your best chapter has never been behind you. It's being written by the choices you make today. Believe in yourself. Respect yourself. Invest in yourself. And never forget, the most important relationship you will is the one you have with the person staring back at you in the mirror. That person deserves your love first. Thank you for spending these moments investing in your growth and your mindset. If this message spoke to your heart, don't let it end here. Take one lesson from today and apply it to your life, because real transformation begins with action, not just inspiration. If you found value in this speech, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear these words, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful motivational content that helps you build confidence, resilience, and a life filled with purpose. And before you leave, tell me in the comments, what's one lesson you're choosing to carry forward from today? I read your comments, and your story could be the encouragement someone else needs. Until next time, keep believing in yourself, keep growing, keep choosing peace over chaos. Keep becoming stronger than your excuses and wiser than your fears. Remember, your future is not decided by the people who walked away. It's decided by the person who refuses to give up. Thank you for watching. Take care, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next video.